Madam Deputy Speaker, it's a great privilege to be called so early in this debate. While I might be new to this place, I've spent 3 decades in uniform and worked with many veterans' charities across the UK, not least in my previous role as Commander of the Army Engagement Group at Sandhurst and in my Bracknell constituency, where our Armed Forces champions are working wonders. The Overseas Operations Bill needs to be considered for what it is, not for what it is not. Given that it is groundbreaking, it needs to start somewhere, and therefore it's bound to attract negative interest. But for those who haven't noticed, the architect of this bill is a veteran. I cannot think of a single minister who has invested so much of himself against such a tough backdrop, and I commend him for everything that he's done this far. He has fulfilled his promise to date to our veterans, and it's incumbent upon us in this place to be objective, because we will not be forgiven if we fail. And I do not believe that anybody can be a supporter of our armed forces and vote against this bill.
On that point, because I won't have that. I will not have that. The armed forces look to this place to get this right. He's correct on that, but they expect and deserve a better standard than the comment he's just made. I like him. I know he's new, but I like him, and I just ask him to withdraw it. Please withdraw it.
I'm a great fan of this bill, and the bill is right. We need to put it through. At its simplest level, the imposition of a presumption in law against prosecution after 5 years will provide greater certainty for our service personnel. Since 2002, the MOD has faced over 1,400 judicial review claims and over 2,000 civil claims relating to operations in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. While many are valid, around 3,400 allegations of unlawful killings have also been received by the Iraq Historical Allegations Team, of which at least 70% have been filtered out as being spurious. Members will also be aware of the Al-Swedi inquiry, which cost the taxpayer £31 million and was proven to be based on, quote, deliberate lies, reckless speculation and ingrained hostility. This was just the tip of the iceberg, and it's right that public interest lawyers, such as Phil Shiner, should have been struck off. But this, Madam Deputy Speaker, is nothing compared to the anguish of our veterans, many of whom are innocent. Please do.
Does my honourable friend give way? Does my honourable friend agree with me that the measures in this bill will actually reduce the uncertainty and anguish, as the honourable friend mentioned, for current armed forces personnel and for veterans?
Yes, I agree very much in that wind. I think the bottom line is veterans I've spoken to over the years are worried about the next knock at the door. This will give certainty, I believe, to the current generation and also those coming afterwards. So to tackle the conjecture, if I may, this bill does not absolve any member of HM forces from operating outside the law. It does not impact upon criminal investigations, and it does not create or come close to creating any de facto immunity for service personnel, as the few bad apples will always be brought to justice. And as for the downright fabrication, the bill does not place our troops on a collision course with the Geneva Convention or The Hague, and it does not break international law. In fact, I have read the bill. In fact, I cannot think of a more robust institution than the MOD for upholding the law, and the UK has a proud record of overseas military service, which is to be applauded, not undermined. As for Part 2 of the bill, I am comfortable that the 6-year long stop for civil claims of personal injuries and death is about right, given that 94% of all claims since 2007 have been settled within 5 years. But we do have the committee stage to unpick this further if we need to. My understanding too is that the long stop also applies to the point at which legacy issues such as hearing loss, PTSD and physical illness may first come to light, therefore providing that safety net. But most importantly for me, the bill requires that courts must consider the unique circumstances of overseas operations and any adverse effect on our personnel when making legal judgments. It does. Those who have served will know that warfighting is a dangerous and terrifying thing. With confusion all around, friends falling beside you, sweat dripping in your eyes, the ground exploding, people moving in every direction, images of family flashing before your eyes, and abject terror everywhere, what would you do? Fortunately, the training is good. The loyalty and the camaraderie within HM forces are unparalleled. Our soldiers do operate within the law of armed conflict, and I salute all those who got closer to danger than I did. And so, Mr. Speaker, despite what others would have you think, the bill does not provide blanket immunity for soldiers to commit war crimes. Indeed, the suggestion in some of what I've read that the best trained and best led armed forces in the world are somehow predisposed to inflicting torture or sex crimes on operations is frankly ridiculous. Not only is it deeply offensive to those who have served, but the people who peddle this nonsense just need to stop. And to those who seek, seen it, to judge them, our veterans, after many years of service, from the sanctity of their courtroom or the comfort of their armchair, I say this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, whatever notion you have of idealism, it may be that you just don't get it. And this, Madam Deputy Speaker, is why this government needs to provide these protections in law. To conclude, I'd like to pass on 3 messages on behalf of many of our 2.2 million veterans who have contacted me to offer support. Firstly, to our esteemed figures who have chosen to unpick this bill by writing divisive articles for the national media, I regret you do not speak for me. Secondly, I say to those dishonourable lawyers who have pursued the victims of a witch hunt into their later years, you also need to be struck off. And to my esteemed colleagues on the opposition benches, please pay heed today to stay on the right side of this. For unlike the thousands of soldiers that I was proud to serve with, your constituents might not be quite so forgiving. So let's do the right thing for those who have endured so much for so long by putting this bill through. Thank you.
Martin.